Hello everybody, and welcome to exercise 2c here on this list of final exam review problems. And this is another example of an integral that they're asking us to calculate. And if you start kind of playing around with the techniques that we've talked about for integrals, you will notice that nothing fits very well. You can try an ordinary substitution, integration by parts, but the form of this integral is just too complicated to make something like that work directly. Okay, so that means that this might be one of those integrals that's well suited to our table of integrals. It's been a while since we did this, so I wanted to remind you that the most common forms in the table, most of them will boil down to one of four things. Okay, so let's start by maybe making a list of those. So common table forms include things like a squared minus u squared minus a squared, u squared plus a squared, or sometimes a plus bu. Okay, with most of the time when you go to your table, it's going to boil down to one of those four things. So if we look at the integral that we're given, notice that we can rewrite it a little bit. If we look at what's under the square root, e to the 2x is e to the x squared. That's kind of a clue. And we can cheat a little bit and rewrite that 7 as the square root of 7 squared if we want to. Okay, and given the way that we've rewritten that, which of the four forms down here on this list would you pick? Which do you think matches the best? Okay, I would say probably number 2, because u represents a variable and a represents a constant. Looking at what's under the square root, that appears to match u squared minus a squared fairly well. Okay, and so the way that we rewrote our integral also suggests a possible u substitution. Okay, let's kind of get started down here. We'll rewrite the integral that we were given, kind of in the form that we rewrote it. Okay, like that. And notice that because we've got e to the x squared, okay, to make it match this form, a nice choice for u would be to just let u be e to the x. Okay, so if we do that, that means that du is going to be e to the x dx, and du over e to the x, if we divide both sides by e to the x, is going to be equal to dx. All right, so rewriting this integral, let's see, we're going to get e to the x times the square root of, we'll take that e to the x that's in here and rewrite that as a u. Okay, and we can see from our work over here that dx is equal to du over e to the x. Okay, and then notice we get a little cancellation here. We've got an e to the x in the numerator and the denominator, so that's going to go away. And if we rewrite our integral, it's going to look like the square root of u squared minus the square root of 7 squared times du. Okay, and the question is, can we find a match for that in our table of integrals? Okay, and if you might remember where this is, but if you go to the main page for our Calculus 2 course, the main Canvas page, you'll see a link to the integral table. If you have trouble finding it, you can just send me an email and I'll help you find it. But if you look down that list of integral forms, remember, we're looking for a match under the list u squared minus a squared. So if you look at that part of your table, what you're going to find is formula number 39 looks like an exact match for what we have. We're going to be using formula 39 with a equals the square root of 7 here. Okay, and so the next thing I'm going to write here is literally what formula 39 tells us. It tells us that an antiderivative for this function looks like u over 2 times the square root of u squared minus a squared minus a squared over 2 times the natural log of the absolute value of u plus the square root of u squared minus a squared all of that plus c. Okay, there's our antiderivative according to the integral table. And the rest of this is just simplification. Okay, so we'll remind ourselves what our u was way back at the beginning. U was e to the x, so everywhere we see a u, we're going to put an e to the x. Okay, and u squared is going to be e to the x squared, which is e to the 2x. Let's go ahead and rewrite the square root of 7 squared as 7 again. Okay, and then we come to this. Square root of 7 squared again is 7. Okay, so all we're really doing here is substituting. Okay, oops, I forgot one, didn't I? Okay, u squared is e to the x squared, which is e to the 2x. Okay, and what we have down here should be our answer. Let's check it just to be sure here. Make sure that we got all the pieces filled in. Yep, looks like we've got an answer here.